A 24-year-old male with autism enters Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, struggling with eye contact while his hands nervously manipulate a small rubber stress toy. He faces accusations of disorderly behavior and resisting police authority following a sensory episode at Starbucks, essentially penalized for his autistic nature in a public setting. As the prosecution maintains that a disability does not excuse illegal acts, Judge Caprio poses a single inquiry that hushes the room. Mr. Stevens, since when has a disability been considered a criminal offense? What follows next? Judge Caprio's personal admission regarding his family, the telephone call he initiates to Starbucks leadership, and the resulting educational program will be watched over 76 million times, proving that true justice often stems from simple empathy. This narrative follows Daniel Cooper and how a single breakdown sparked a global campaign. March 14 brought early spring light to Providence. However, within the Providence Municipal Court, the mood was turning stressful in a surprising manner. Judge Frank Caprio was reviewing his Thursday morning cases when a file was called that would evolve into a landmark moment for disability rights in digital history. The State versus Daniel Andrew Cooper. Disorderly conduct, obstructing police orders, and disturbing the peace. The young defendant who walked in appeared terrified far beyond typical courtroom jitters. The chamber doors swung open and Daniel Cooper entered accompanied by his mother, Susan Cooper, who maintained a protective grip on his arm. Daniel was 24, slender and pale, clad in a button-down shirt that seemed painfully formal. The collar irritated him, the material clearly triggering sensory distress as he repeatedly tugged at it. His dark hair was brushed neatly, yet his hands moved incessantly, fingers drumming his leg in a rhythmic pattern, clutching a small blue rubber ball, or brushing his trousers repeatedly. His gaze remained locked on the ground, never lifting, never meeting the eyes of anyone present. As he moved toward the defense table, his stride was somewhat unusual, not uncoordinated, but distinct, as if he were hyper-focused on every movement. He sat only after his mother signaled him toward the chair. Even while seated, his posture radiated extreme discomfort. Shoulders tightened, head bowed, still squeezing the ball in a steady rhythm. Susan Cooper stood beside her son with the weary alertness of a parent who had spent over 2 decades shielding a child misunderstood by society. She was in her early 50s, dressed simply, clutching a folder overflowing with papers, medical files, diagnostic assessments, and behavioral strategies. It was the folder of a guardian who had learned to always carry evidence. Judge Caprio examined the file, then looked at Daniel, and his demeanor shifted instantly from formal judicial distance to something else. Recognition, Mr. Cooper. Judge Caprio spoke softly. Good morning. My name is Judge Frank Caprio. You are here because Daniel recoiled slightly at being addressed, his hands working the stress ball faster, his eyes remaining tethered to the floor. Susan spoke gently. Your Honor, if I may, my son Daniel lives with autism spectrum disorder. Being spoken to directly can be paralyzing for him. Would it be acceptable if I? Certainly, Mrs. Cooper. Please assist me in understanding how to engage with Daniel in a way that feels safe for him. Judge Caprio's reply immediately altered the atmosphere. Susan looked relieved. Frequently, she had encountered situations where people lacked such patience. Your Honor, Daniel can speak, but struggles with direct dialogue, particularly in high-pressure environments. He finds eye contact physically painful. It isn't rudeness. It is a fundamental part of his autism. He understands information better when he isn't forced to look at the speaker. Judge Caprio nodded, then performed an act that brought tears to Susan's eyes. He lowered his volume, softened his delivery, and spoke while intentionally avoiding a demand for Daniel's gaze. Daniel, you do not have to look at me. That is perfectly all right. I understand. You may look at the floor or your ball or anywhere you feel secure. I only need you to hear my words. Are you able to hear me as I speak? Daniel's hands paused for a split second. His voice was low, nearly flat, but audible. Yes, Your Honor. I can hear you. Excellent. Daniel, you are here today regarding an event at a Starbucks on February 18th. Before we discuss that, I want to ensure you are comfortable. Is this room too noisy or too bright? Is there anything bothering you right now? Susan watched Judge Caprio with deep appreciation. 24 years of advocating for her son's requirements, and here was a judge who intuited them without being prompted. Daniel's voice stayed soft. The overhead lights are very bright, Your Honor. And I hear a buzzing sound from the air system. It is a lot, but I am okay. Would it help if we lowered the lights slightly? Your Honor, Susan interrupted. That is very thoughtful, but you do not have to. Officer Webb, Judge Caprio instructed his bailiff. Can we reduce the courtroom lighting by half? And see if the ventilation can be adjusted to stop that noise. Officer Marcus Webb followed the order immediately. The bright fluorescent tubes dimmed to a gentle glow, and the mechanical drone of the cooling system faded as it shut down. Daniel's posture eased slightly, almost imperceptibly to most, but his mother noticed. "Thank you, Your Honor," Daniel muttered, still staring down, but with less grit in his tone. What the lawyer revealed about the incident would shock everyone. Judge Caprio revisited the case details. "Mrs. Cooper, can you describe what occurred on February 18th? Susan exhaled deeply, having recounted this ordeal many times to officers, to attorneys, and to skeptics. "Your Honor, Daniel and I visited Starbucks that day. Daniel follows a strict schedule. He visits the same shop thrice weekly, orders the identical beverage, and occupies the same window seat. Structure is vital for Daniel. It helps him control panic and feel grounded. That morning, a new employee was working. When Daniel requested his standard drink, a tall roast with precisely 2 inches of space for milk. The barista failed to grasp the specific nature of the request. She became annoyed with Daniel for being overly particular. She raised her voice, saying, 'Just tell me if it's small, medium, or large. Stop being difficult.' Judge Caprio focused intently as Susan went on. 'Your Honor, loud voices and sudden social friction are major crises for Daniel.' He began to feel flooded. He attempted to explain his autism and his need for specific procedures, but the worker rolled her eyes and remarked, 'Everyone claims they are autistic lately. Just order like a normal human.' Daniel's hands were racing with the stress ball now, clearly experiencing the memory of the conflict. Daniel suffered a sensory collapse. His system entered a fight-or-flight state, but for Daniel, that results in a total shutdown. He lost the ability to speak. He could not navigate the surroundings. The clatter, the brightness, the staring crowd, it all became unbearable. He sat on the floor in the center of the shop and began swaying. This is called stimming, a self-regulating repetitive action. He was not being hostile. He wasn't a threat. He was enduring a massive panic attack. What occurred then? Susan's tone became more strained. Other patrons misinterpreted what they saw. Someone dialed emergency services reporting a man acting erratic and possibly having a fit. Law enforcement arrived within moments. Upon arrival, Daniel was still grounded, swaying, silent, unable to reply to their inquiries. The responding officers lacked autism training. They repeatedly ordered Daniel to stand, look at them, and answer questions. But Daniel was in total sensory saturation. He was physically incapable of compliance. Consequently, they detained him for disorderly conduct and resisting police orders. Judge Caprio's face clouded over. They jailed him for having a panic attack. Yes, Your Honor. They put cuffs on my son, my autistic son who was having a crisis, and hauled him to the station. He was held for 4 hours before I could secure his release. He didn't utter a word for 2 days after. The shock of being restrained, placed in a cruiser, and processed was traumatic. It was heartbreaking. The prosecutor's stance would highlight widespread ignorance. Judge Caprio looked at Assistant District Attorney Michael Stevens. "Mr. Stevens, I am reviewing these counts. Disorderly conduct and obstructing justice. Explain to me, what exactly did Mr. Cooper do that was criminal?" Stevens stood up, visibly awkward. "Your Honor, Mr. Cooper caused a public disturbance at a place of business. When officers provided legal orders to stand and provide identification, he neglected to comply. The police had no knowledge of his autism." "Mr. Stevens," Judge Caprio broke in, his voice cutting. "Did Mr. Cooper intimidate anyone?" "No, Your Honor, but did he break anything?" "No. But did he hit anyone?" "No, Your Honor." Then what exactly was disorderly about his behavior? Because based on what I am hearing, an autistic individual had a sensory crisis caused by an employee who insulted his condition, sat down to utilize the only calming methods he has used his whole life, and was subsequently arrested for being autistic in public. Stevens attempted a rebuttal. "Your Honor, autism is not a valid excuse for ignoring police commands." Failure to comply. Judge Caprio's volume increased. "Mr. Stevens, if a person suffers a heart attack and cannot answer police because they are unconscious, do we jail them for noncompliance? If someone is deaf and cannot hear the orders, is that resisting? If someone is having a seizure and cannot follow directions, is that disorderly? Your Honor, those are physical emergencies, and this was a neurological crisis. An autistic episode is a medical situation, not a crime. Mr. Cooper did not choose to be silent. He did not choose to sway. His nervous system was overwhelmed and he utilized his only available coping tool. Judge Caprio's personal story would change the day. Judge Caprio stood up. That movement everyone knew signaled importance, but this time his look was different. Not just pitying, but deeply moved. Mrs. Cooper, Daniel, I have something to share. My grandson, my own daughter's boy, is on the autism spectrum. He is 12, highly capable, but shares many of the challenges Daniel experiences. Struggles with eye contact, light sensitivity, a need for routine, and I have seen my daughter battle for him every single day. The room fell silent. This was intimate for Judge Caprio in a way few matters were. I have watched my grandson collapse in public. I have seen the stares. I have heard people claim he needs more discipline or better parenting. I have seen my daughter weep because strangers do not grasp that autism is not a failure of parenting. It is a biological difference that makes the world scary in ways most cannot fathom. He looked at Daniel, speaking softly. Daniel, I want you to know something. You did nothing wrong. 0. Having a meltdown is not illegal. Needing to stim is not illegal. Avoiding eye contact is not illegal. Being autistic is not a crime. Daniel's hands stopped. He didn't look up yet, but his voice was stronger. Thank you, Your Honor. Judge Caprio turned to the lawyer. Mr. Stevens, I am dropping all counts against Daniel Cooper. Right now, entirely. There will be no history of this arrest. Furthermore, I am ordering the records destroyed. This never should have occurred. Susan began to cry. Daniel gripped his ball, silent and thinking. But I am not finished yet. What Judge Caprio did next would ignite a nationwide movement. Judge Caprio grabbed his phone and started dialing right from his seat. An action he had taken before in rare cases, but never quite like this. Is this Starbucks corporate office? Yes, this is Judge Frank Caprio from Providence Court in Rhode Island. I need to talk to Human Resources about disability rights and employee education. Yes, I will wait. The court watched as Judge Caprio was routed through the Starbucks corporate phone tree. Yes. Hello, I am Judge Frank Caprio. I have an autistic man here who was arrested after a sensory crisis in your store. The event was sparked by a worker who mocked his disability and told him to act normal. No, I am not filing a lawsuit. I am calling because this shows a massive failure in awareness training. Judge Caprio's voice grew more intense. I want to know what education your staff receives regarding customers with autism or sensory issues. They receive none. That is a problem. A major problem. Because autism affects 1 in 36 children here. That means millions of customers have autism or love someone who does. I am asking this. Start mandatory autism training for every employee. Teach them to distinguish crises from tantrums. Teach them about stimming. Teach them that when someone orders specifically, they might be autistic and that routine manages their fear. He paused and listened. Thank you. I appreciate that. I will send you resources from organizations to help build this. And know this video is being filmed and will be seen by millions. Your brand's response will be public. He ended the call and dialed again. Providence Police, please. I need the chief. This is Judge Frank Caprio. It is about how we handle autism emergencies. The sequence of events would lead to permanent change. Over the following 20 minutes, Judge Caprio made 4 additional calls. Second call, the police chief. Chief Morrison, I have a situation where your officers arrested an autistic man during a meltdown. They missed the signs and thought his medical state was defiance. I know they aren't doctors, but they need basic training. When they see someone swaying, avoiding eye contact, and silent, they should think autism, not crime. Thank you. I will help lead this. Third call, Autism Society. This is Judge Frank Caprio. I have a man here who was arrested for a meltdown. I need your help training police in stores. Can you build a curriculum? Great. I will help fund it. Fourth call, the news desk. This is Judge Caprio. I have a story of an autistic man arrested for being himself. This needs coverage because it is happening everywhere. Thank you. Fifth call, advocacy groups. I want an autism-friendly sticker program in Providence. Trained businesses get a window decal. Can you assist? When finished, Judge Caprio addressed Daniel and Susan. Mrs. Cooper, Daniel, here is what we have started. Starbucks will develop nationwide training. Our police are starting response classes. The Autism Society is launching a certification program. And this story is going public so everyone sees what must change. Susan was sobbing. Your Honor, I spent 24 years fighting for him. Fighting schools, stores, and people who think it's just bad behavior. In 20 minutes, you have done more than I did in decades. Mrs. Cooper, you were fighting alone. But not anymore. Daniel's arrest, as wrong as it was, will create change for thousands. Daniel's final words would move millions. For the first time, Daniel spoke without being asked. His voice was low but certain. Your Honor, may I speak? Of course, Daniel, you may say anything. Most think autism means I don't feel or know things, but I do. I understand everything. I just process it differently. When that barista said be normal, I knew she thought I was being difficult. But I wasn't. I was ordering the only way my brain allows. Daniel squeezed his ball, eyes on the floor. When police cuffed me, I knew they thought I was defiant. But I wasn't. My body just stopped. I couldn't speak or stand. Not because I wouldn't, but because I couldn't. Your Honor, being autistic means the world isn't built for my brain. Everything is too loud, too bright, too fast. And when I ask for help, people think I'm difficult. But I am just trying to survive a world that hurts me every day. The room was totally silent. Many were weeping. Your Honor, thank you for listening. Thank you for believing my mother. Thank you for calling those people. And thank you for saying I didn't do anything wrong because I've always been told I'm wrong. Judge Caprio wiped his eyes. Daniel, you aren't wrong. The world is wrong for not helping you, and we are going to fix that. The video was posted that night titled Autistic Man Arrested for Meltdown. It sparked a massive movement. Within 8 hours, 9 million views. Within a week, 76 million. Now over 82 million. The reaction was historic. The comment section had over 600,000 messages of gratitude. I'm autistic and have been arrested too, this made me cry. 891,000 likes. I'm a mother, seeing him dim the lights made me sob. 723,000 likes. I'm a cop, I've now requested training for my team. 612,000 likes. Train your staff about disability. 567,000 likes. Action followed fast. Starbucks announced training for 238,000 staff members. 4 to 7 police departments asked for info. A new fund was created. Major retailers announced programs. #autism is not a crime trended globally. Daniel appeared on major news networks. 12 states added autism alerts to licenses. TSA updated procedures. Within a month, the business program was in 34 states. Over 12,000 businesses joined. Training became standard for police. Daniel spoke at national conferences. Starbucks added sensory hours. 6 months later, Daniel returned to see Judge Caprio. The room was ready, dim, quiet, and calm. Daniel walked in with new confidence. Still with his ball, but less fear. Daniel. Caprio greeted him. Welcome back. Thank you for coming. I know this is hard. Thank you, Your Honor. The changes you made here really help. Good. Daniel, tell me how you are. Susan spoke first. His life has changed. He's been invited to speak 40 times in 6 months. He's an advocate. Daniel added, I never wanted to be a speaker. It's terrifying. Too many faces and noise. But if I don't, people won't learn. What do you tell them? I tell them what I told you. We process the world differently. I tell cops that silence isn't defiance. I tell workers that specificity is survival. Caprio smiled. You're helping thousands. Your Honor, I also went back to Starbucks. The barista, Ashley, met me. She did the training and apologized. She said she didn't know. I forgave her because that's the issue. People don't know. But now they are learning. Susan showed a folder of 12,000 letters. From kids and parents and cops. One teen had charges dropped after the video. A mother got her school to help. A cop saved a life by recognizing a meltdown. Caprio was moved. Daniel, do you see your impact? I'm starting to, but it's a lot to process. Susan said over 2 million people have now been trained because of him. 2 million people who won't make that mistake. Daniel is now writing a book called Autism is Not a Crime. He's working on video training for police. Daniel looked up briefly. 6 months ago, I was a criminal. Today, I'm helping the world. It's strange. Caprio said, you were traumatized then. Today you are a hero. You turned pain into progress. Your Honor, I'm not a hero. I'm just autistic. Daniel, that is exactly why you are a hero. Today, Daniel is a famous advocate. His book has sold 300,000 copies. He speaks monthly. Programs exist in 50 states. Businesses are certified. Millions have been raised. Police training is standard. States have new laws. Caprio keeps the blue ball on his desk. Under it, he wrote, "The day I learned justice means understanding that different isn't wrong." Daniel says, "I didn't choose this. A judge just understood me." Caprio says, "I saw my grandson in him. I decided not in my courtroom." The meltdown led to a movement. One ball, one moment, 82 million views, and a world finally learning. Autism is not a crime.